Good morning, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here at the Greenbrier Church Online. I have an illustration book in my office that tells about a time when Albert Einstein boarded a train in New Jersey. As the train conductors made his way down the aisle collecting tickets, Einstein rifled through his pockets and his briefcase, but he just couldn't find his ticket. The conductor said, "Don't worry, Dr. Einstein. Everybody knows who you are, and I'm sure you have a ticket." And the conductor made his way down the aisle, continuing to collect the tickets from the other passengers. Once the conductor reached the end of the train car, he turned around and noticed Einstein was on his knees looking under the seat. The conductor comes back down the aisle, taps Dr. Einstein on the shoulder, and says, "Sir, I know who you are. I'm confident you have a ticket. Please just enjoy the trip." To which Einstein replied, "Sir, I also know who I am. I just don't know where I'm going." Have you ever felt like you were on a journey, but you were not really sure where you were going or how you're going to get there? I had a teacher in high school who had a quote above her desk from the Cheshire Cat in the book Alice in Wonderland. The quote simply said, "If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there." Last week, we began this new series on the Sermon on the Mount. And I told you last week that I felt that this was an X-rated sermon. Jesus is doing two things in the sermon. First, he's telling us who we are. We are children of God, filled with the Holy Spirit. And secondly, he's telling us the destination of our journey, to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. But many of the disciples who were on the side of that mountain, they were wandering through life and they were feeling lost. In the same way, today we meander around looking for anything that we believe will give us a little happiness. And at the end, we discover that we've spent our whole lives looking for that elusive possession or relationship or opportunity that we believe will make us happy, and it never arrives. As Jesus describes what life lived with the Holy Spirit looks like, he goes straight to the heart of our struggle. This X-rated sermon starts with 8 blessings that challenge what we think and we know and we understand about God and our relationship with Him. We've been raised with this belief, this false belief, that God honors those who honor Him. We believe that once we choose to be on God's team, then nothing's going to be held back from us. God will honor us by giving us all of the desires of our hearts. If we'll just give our lives to Him, then we will have everything we could ever want. It doesn't take us long to discover that's not the case. We follow the rules, we read our Bibles, we go to church, we take communion, we tithe, we even put a bumper sticker on our car, and yet everything is still not perfect in our lives. We still have struggles, we still have issues. Then eventually the truth comes crashing down around us, and it gets harder to believe and to trust in God. Well, not in God, just in His promises, in His goodness. And eventually our hearts grow numb because we spend so much time waiting and groping in the shadows, longing for the day to break, and yet the sun never seems to come up. And we find ourselves disappointed with God. Jesus is talking to disciples who know how disappointing it is to figure out that God's not some sort of cosmic Santa Claus or genie in a lamp that only exists to fulfill our every desire. Jesus begins this sermon by reminding us that God is the creator, we are the creation. God is the one who saves, we're the ones who need to be saved. The first words out of His mouth are, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Arthur Pink says to be poor in spirit is to realize that I have nothing, I am nothing, and I can do nothing. I'm in need of all things. In other words, being poor in spirit is to see ourselves as we really are, lost, broken, wretched sinners, which is something we don't really want to admit. I mean, we're children of the King. We're not some poor peasant beggars, which is true and false at the same time. Yes, we're children of the King, but we must also be keenly aware that we are His children based solely on His love and His grace. One of the Bibles in my office translates this verse, God blesses those people who depend only on Him. They belong to the kingdom of heaven. In very much the same way that the Ten Commandments begin with the acknowledgement that Jehovah alone is God, the Sermon on the Mount begins by acknowledging our deep need for Jesus, which is the perfect place to begin our journey to happiness, because often we're guilty of looking at all of our blessings and refusing to realize how desperately we need God's help. We fool ourselves into thinking that we can be good enough to earn His blessings. We convince ourselves that if we attend worship 30 to 40 times a year, bring our kids to Sunday school, give 10% of our income to the church, that somehow we're going to merit the favor of God and successfully earn our own salvation. Yet Jesus starts the sermon by saying, you're not righteous. You're not holy. You're not worthy of God's blessings. Actually, we first must admit and understand how spiritually bankrupt we are without Christ. If you want to be happy, you must understand that apart from Christ, you can do and accomplish nothing. Being happy begins with the understanding that we're not really good people. And if we're left to our own devices, we're spiritually bankrupt. I know that's hard to hear, but we need to acknowledge our sickness before we can get well. An addict has to stand up and admit that they're addicted before they can ever get clean and sober. The doctor has to look at us and say, you have cancer, before we can start the treatments to get healthy. And a sinner has to acknowledge that they're sinful before they'll turn to God and receive His free gifts of love and mercy and grace. It was Solomon that warned his children, pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Solomon understood all too well that it's our pride that keeps us from truly seeking God and depending on Him. When Satan tempted Adam and Eve in the garden, his first appeal was to their pride. You will be like God. 4,000 years later, we find Jesus on the side of a mountain dealing with the sin of pride. And 2,000 years after that, we're still battling the sin of pride. Jesus is pretty clear. The proud will not inherit the kingdom of heaven because we refuse to give ourselves completely to God. We think that if we give God 20 or 50 or 98%, that's good enough. And while our life path may go through a lot of worship services, Bible classes, service projects, eventually we're going to find ourselves in hell. Because God is not going to bless someone who only gives most of their heart to Him. The command is to love the Lord your God with 100% of our heart, mind, soul, body, and strength. You see, God gave us everything. And He says if we really and truly want to be happy, we must give everything to Him in return. Now, we're not sure who wrote the 73rd Psalm, but we understand that the psalmist gets it. In verse 25, the psalmist declares, whom have I in heaven but you? And there's nothing on earth that I desire besides you. These are the words of someone who knew what it was to be poor in spirit. In the psalm, the writer experienced God. They finally understood their own brokenness and God's overwhelming love. They had achieved spiritual balance. Now, on the mountain, Jesus is surrounded by disciples. They knew the psalm, but they were struggling to find that same balance because, honestly, there's a lot of things we desire beside the Lord. You see, it's my desire to sin that causes me to insert myself in the center of the world. In the movie of my life, I'm the star. Everybody else is just supporting cast because I'm in every scene of that movie. My name is the title on the marquee surrounded by lights. And in this movie, it's easy to forget that I am the creature under the rulership and ownership of my Creator. As long as I'm only focused on me, on my wants, my desires, my struggles, my frustrations, I'll spend my whole life trying to manipulate situations and locations and relationships for my own pleasure and comfort. Once my vision gets distorted because of my sin, I begin to look horizontally, where it's easy to buy into the lie that money and possessions will provide me the happiness and the peace that can only really come from God. And so we try to serve God in things, the Creator and the creation. We search for happiness, pleasure, and comfort in things that will never endure the fire. And we forget that life, hope, peace, rest, identity, meaning, purpose, they're only found in a deep, abiding relationship with God. You see, when I'm the center of my world, I look at the creation to find satisfaction for my soul. Then it's only natural for me to compare my pile of stuff with your pile of stuff. And instead of counting my blessings, I become envious, a selfish scorekeeper. People who are poor in spirit have not attained perfection, they've simply found balance. They understand the gift of God's amazing and overwhelming grace and mercy. And the psalmist rightly claims that there's nothing on earth that I desire besides you, because every morning he asks and depends on God's grace. In the same way, every day, we must humbly admit that our tendency is to focus inward. Every day, we need to humbly admit that our desires are often more for the created world than for the God who created the world. Every day, we must humbly admit that we're prone to thinking, if I just had more stuff than my neighbor, then I'd be happy. Instead, we need to believe that true happiness is not found in comparing ourselves to other people, but rather loving other people. When you and I were created by God, we were gifted with the ability to desire. And since it's a part of how we were created, it's good and right to desire, to seek, to want. There would be something wrong with us if we didn't desire or want things. But the first beatitude is a call for us to be aware of how our desire shapes our lives. There's nothing you'll ever choose to do or say that's not first the product of your desire. And the first beatitude is a reminder that whatever desire rules our heart will ultimately rule our behavior. You see, desire forms our moments of greatest joy and darkest grief. It's desire that makes us envious of one person while being glad you're not another. It's desire that keeps us awake at night or puts us soundly to sleep. Desire makes us expectant and hopeful in one moment, and demanding and complaining in the next. Desire makes us susceptible to temptation, and at other times, it's the thing that defends us against temptation. Desire can make you the best of friends or cause you to drive people away. That's why the first beatitude is all about our desire. Jesus created us and knows that desire will cause us to lovingly edit our vocabulary or allow it to rip and just tell people like it is with little regard to the damage our words will do. Desire is the heart of our decision to willingly give to people who have needs, as well as our desire to hoard everything that we have. Whatever desire rules your heart controls your behavior. And I don't think we understand that. You see, every year people make resolutions to lose weight by exercising, to be more successful, or getting better organized. We buy into the idea that if we can only change our behavior, then we'll truly be successful, which leads us to believe that our struggle for godliness is merely a war of our behavior. But God understands that our true behavior is dictated by our deepest desires. If we want to get our outsides, our actions, our behaviors right, we must be willing to work on the place where our behavior is formed in the desires of our heart. The first beatitude calls us to check how we're doing with our battle with desire. And I don't know about you, but it's tempting for me to say, I desire God and God alone, when in fact at street level, my life is shaped by the anxious pursuit of other things. God is calling us, giving us the opportunity to be more honest about our desires of our heart. We must be transparent and honest and admit that there are times when Jesus is our priceless treasure, and there are other times when we desire and want something else. You see, that's why the table's so important. Every time we gather at the table, it's an opportunity for us to be reminded that we are created to desire God, and that everything else is unworthy of that desire. Everyone is looking for security, for peace in this life. And when we come to the table, we're reminded that the secret of spiritual power is to walk humbly before the Lord and to realize that we have to depend on Him. Everything God has to offer is available because God offers Himself, which is the greatest gift we'll ever receive. This morning and every morning, we can only thrive if we recognize our need for Christ in our life. We need God's power to make it through the day. God knows how much we need Him, and He lovingly offers us Himself. God's power is available, but we have to recognize how deeply we need Him. We need to ask for God's presence in our lives. And if you walk out of a building thinking that you don't need God, then what you're saying is, you know what, I can solve all my problems on my own power, my own ability, my own strength. And if that's the case, is there any wonder why you're tired all the time? This morning, Jesus is calling us to be poor in spirit. That's where we start. And unless we start here, nothing else that's going to be said in this X-rated sermon is a possibility. As we gather at the tables this morning, let's take a moment and talk about our desires. Let's take a moment and talk about the desires that we have for our family, our personal lives, our professional lives. And this morning, be honest. What do you really want most in this life? And then let's spend some time talking about how those desires were given to us by God to actually draw us closer to God. Church, this morning as we gather at the tables, I hope that we gather in a time to remember and to reflect and to truly understand what it is to want and desire God most of all. I pray that you have a great day, that you have a wonderful week, that you have peace this week, and above all, that you know you are loved. Have a great day.